Have you ever pondered the nature of a deep, persistent inner pain, a pain that lingers even when everything outwardly seems fine? This feeling of internal discomfort, as if something fundamental is out of place, can haunt you despite all attempts to alleviate it. Perhaps you've tried various methods, from meditative practices to advice from loved ones, from trying to ignore the pain to creating an illusion of well-being. Yet, the suffering persists, like a silent shadow relentlessly following you. Perhaps it's time to hear what has remained unsaid until now. The root of most suffering lies not in external circumstances, but in the depths of your own self, in those aspects of your personality that have been rejected or ignored. Carl Jung, the eminent psychologist, once observed, "What you do not make conscious will appear in your life as fate." Perhaps this is precisely what's happening now. Life is persistently trying to convey something important, but these signals go unnoticed. You try to escape the truth, hiding behind a mask of distractions, addictions, and superficial relationships, convincing yourself that the pain will subside with time. But it doesn't, because pain does not tolerate being ignored. It demands understanding and acknowledgement. This video goes beyond typical self-improvement advice, offering more than just a collection of soothing phrases or quick fixes. The aim is to activate your internal processes, urging you to confront those aspects of your own personality that are meticulously hidden even from yourself. Just a few minutes of your attention, and it will be demonstrated why your existence is overshadowed by suffering and how you can put an end to it, relying not on illusory techniques but on deep self-awareness. Perhaps you are in a deep life rut, balancing on the verge of an emotional breakdown, hiding an inner scream behind an outward smile, or perhaps you've learned to live with the pain, seeing it as an inherent part of yourself. In any case, the author is ready to share a harsh truth. Suffering persists only because you lack the resolve to face its root cause. Carl Jung dedicated his life to exploring this dark realm of the human soul, asserting that only those who dare to delve into their own darkness can find true light. If you are ready for such a journey, transformation is promised. By the end of this video, you will not be the same, as the discoveries made here are capable of fundamentally altering your perception of yourself, your pain, and your freedom. This is where the path to liberation begins. It is a common belief that the causes of personal misfortunes lie in external factors: tyrannical bosses, difficult relationships with loved ones, financial hardships, societal pressure, and imposed stereotypes. Undoubtedly, all of these influence one's life. However, genuine, exhausting suffering that offers no peace even in moments of quiet arises from a loss of connection with one's own essence. As Carl Jung asserted, the greatest tragedy for the soul is an existence devoid of authenticity. And this is precisely the situation many people often find themselves in. From an early age, we are taught to conform to accepted norms to gain approval and avoid rejection. Gradually, step by step, we drift away from our true self. We become actors playing a role to please others, puppets striving not to cause trouble. Our own desires are suppressed, emotions stifled, anger restrained, and sorrow suffocated. As a result, a pain accumulates that is difficult to define. It's not a scream, but rather an all-consuming emptiness. It is the torment of those who live disconnected from themselves, who look in the mirror and don't recognize their reflection. We become so accustomed to the imposed role that we forget our true needs. But the soul, deeply sensitive, senses the falsehood. It begins to signal its discomfort through anxiety, insomnia, apathy, and guilt. Emotional pain is an alarm signal, indicating self-betrayal. Make no mistake, the source of emotional pain lies not in failure itself, but in the unfulfilled expectations and illusory self-perceptions we have created. Loneliness torments us not by its mere presence, but by exposing an inner void stemming from a lack of self-knowledge, from a lost connection with ourselves. It is not other people who cause us suffering, but our own self-rejection, the betrayal of our values, and the desperate desire to maintain an appearance of well-being in conformity to others' expectations. As long as this gap exists between the external mask and the inner self, suffering will inevitably continue, for we are vainly trying to heal only the external manifestations of the ailment, while its root lies deep within us. However, it's important to remember that pain is not a condemnation, but a valuable signal, a warning that change is needed. The great psychologist Carl Jung asserted that suffering is the first step on the path to personal transformation. Pain exists to bring us back to ourselves, to our true essence, to who we truly are. This return begins by ceasing to run from yourself and by being willing to listen to your inner voice, to that which has been buried under layers of social masks, drowned out by the noise of daily life, and consigned to oblivion. Next, we will turn our attention to the most dangerous yet simultaneously most liberating force within the human psyche, that part of our personality we fear most, but which holds the key to healing. We are talking about what Jung called the shadow. If we truly wish to end suffering, we must know our shadow and bravely face it. The desire to eliminate suffering often leads to battling its manifestations, while the true cause remains untouched. Anxiety, guilt, outbursts of anger, and deep sorrow are perceived as enemies, as flaws requiring immediate eradication. Yet, paradoxically, the true source of the problem lies not in external circumstances, but in the depths of our own self. This silent and hidden inner enemy poses the greatest danger. Carl Jung named this dark side of the human psyche the shadow. Make no mistake, every person, without exception, carries the shadow within them. It consists of everything that has been suppressed, hidden, or rejected within oneself. These are unacceptable desires, forbidden emotions, restrained anger, unexpressed sexuality, ambitions hidden under a mask of humility, and fears that you persistently deny. The shadow is formed from those aspects of the personality that were once deemed undesirable or unacceptable. However, these aspects do not vanish. They continue to exist in the darkness of the unconscious. The more you ignore your shadow, the more powerfully it dominates your life. Recall moments when sudden bursts of anger seemed inexplicable, when promising opportunities were sabotaged, or when healthy relationships crumbled under the influence of an impulse that defied logical explanation. This is the shadow manifesting. The renowned psychoanalyst Carl Jung once remarked that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The question arises, are your sufferings merely a manifestation of bad luck, karmic retribution, or injustice? Perhaps the root of the problem lies in your so-called shadow, those aspects of your personality repressed into the unconscious, gaining the upper hand. And this shadow side will continue to exert its influence until you dare to face it. However, confronting your own shadow requires considerable courage, for it implies acknowledging qualities and actions within yourself that you would prefer to hide from yourself. It means looking in the mirror and seeing the reflection of that part of yourself you've always tried to conceal. You'll have to stop playing the victim of circumstances and admit that within each of us, there is a monster. But it's important to remember that this monster is also human, also a part of ourselves. And here lies the key. The shadow is not an enemy, but merely a part of the soul that was once exiled. And like any outcast, it simply yearns to be seen, heard, and welcomed back. Jung did not advocate for getting rid of the shadow. He believed it must be embraced, transformed into a source of strength, awareness, and power. For what you reject makes you weaker, while what you integrate into your personality, conversely, liberates you. Next, we will explore what to do with this shadow once it has presented itself in all its unsightliness. This is about the path of courage, the beginning of genuine healing, and how to take the first step toward reuniting your fragmented soul. For recognizing your shadow is only the beginning of the journey. How you choose to deal with it moving forward will determine your destiny. You have come a long way, learning the bitter truth about your inner fragmentation, daring to face your own shadow. And now, the culminating moment arrives, confrontation. Simply understanding the causes of your suffering is not enough. Understanding is merely a starting point. True healing requires active steps that are courageous, sincere, and often painful. The time has come to do what only a few dare to do, to walk through your inner hell with wide open eyes. As Carl Jung asserted, the path to self-knowledge leads through a thorny trail that few dare to tread. And this courage lies not in the absence of fear, but in moving forward despite it. Confronting the unconscious is a journey through dark, uncharted territory where control is lost. It is the moment you shed your mask, refuse the role of victim, and acknowledge that a part of your being fuels your suffering. This demands ruthless honesty, a rejection of self-deception. But what does this confrontation with the unconscious mean in practice? It means learning to listen to the body's signals that the mind stubbornly ignores. It's the stomachache in the presence of an unpleasant person, the tightness in your chest when you agree to a situation that degrades your dignity, the inexplicable fatigue that appears after a forced smile. All of these are attempts by the unconscious to save you, not destroy you. You can start small. Record your dreams, analyze emotional triggers, reflect on recurring life patterns. Every time something throws you off balance, there's a hidden message behind it, requiring deciphering. The depths of the subconscious communicate through symbolic images, and your primary task is to interpret them. It's crucial to approach this process thoughtfully and impartially, demonstrating a willingness for sincere self-analysis. The goal is not to lull yourself with illusions, but to bravely face your inner contradictions. One of the most effective methods to achieve this goal is the practice of deep writing. It's recommended to engage in this activity daily, laying bare your innermost secrets on paper as if confessing to yourself. You should write down what causes you shame, fears you're afraid to admit, and thoughts you've never dared to voice. When these words break free from the prison of silence, they lose their destructive power. Another valuable tool is a therapeutic mirror, whether in the form of a qualified psychologist or another specialist capable of helping you decipher the signals sent by your mind. As Jung asserted, the unconscious is not merely a repository of discarded elements, but a living, intelligent organism. It seeks to point out something important, to heal, but it requires a careful and impartial attitude, without defensive mechanisms or excuses. Do you seek to end your torment? If so, you must stop running, for as long as you try to hide, suffering will relentlessly pursue you. However, when you find the strength to stop and face it, an astonishing transformation occurs. Suffering begins to shift, to transform, opening up horizons that no one had ever mentioned before. The pain that instills such fear in you is, in fact, a portal, a gateway to a new reality. This is the phenomenon we will explore next. What is the true role of pain in your life? Why does it persistently assert itself, even when everything seems under control? And, most importantly, how can it become your most powerful ally on the path to liberation? If you are ready to discover the answers to these questions, continue reading. Most people spend their lives in futile attempts to rid themselves of pain. They resort to medications, seek refuge in distractions, immerse themselves in superficial relationships, chase fleeting pleasures, accumulate achievements, and create an illusion of happiness on social media, all merely to avoid unpleasant sensations. But there's a harsh truth few want to acknowledge. As long as you try to get rid of pain, it will pursue you. For pain exists not to be eliminated, but to be heard. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung viewed suffering not as an unfortunate mistake in life, but as a call for transformation. Pain is a signal, indicating that something within you is broken, requiring attention, care, and reevaluation. It's a cry from the soul, proclaiming that the old way of life can no longer continue. Every pain carries a message, every longing is a code awaiting deciphering. You must stop perceiving pain as an enemy and start treating it as a guide, pointing the way to healing and liberation. In everyone's life experience, there are moments when destiny presents the necessity for change. Consider, do many of these transformations occur within your comfort zone? Most likely not. It is in the swirling chaos that your inner essence begins to reconfigure itself. In moments of emotional pain, the psyche desperately demands renewal, and it is precisely in these difficult circumstances that genuine personal transformation begins. As Jung said, suffering must be lived through completely to be overcome. In other words, pain demands not avoidance, but passage through it. To apply this concept to real life, imagine someone who lives their days denying their own needs and desires to please others. They are always ready to help, invariably friendly and accommodating. However, over time, this person becomes overwhelmed by anxiety, exhausting fatigue, and inexplicable sadness. They seek medical help, undergo examinations, take antidepressants, but no relief comes. The reason is that the body is signaling a problem that the mind refuses to acknowledge. Living in contradiction to your own truth causes suffering, and this pain will persist until you stop deceiving yourself. Another example, you repeatedly follow the same pattern of behavior in relationships, consistently choosing emotionally unavailable partners, constantly experiencing feelings of rejection, and ultimately feeling not good enough. This pain is not merely a failure, but rather a reflection. It is life persistently pointing to an old, perhaps childhood, wound that requires healing. And as long as this wound remains unaddressed, suffering will serve as a constant reminder of it. When you begin to perceive pain as a symbolic language, a reevaluation of what is happening occurs. What once seemed like punishment now appears as a compass, pointing in the right direction. Pain begins to lead you. And paradoxically, you realize that suffering, if listened to carefully, can become the most powerful force for healing, as it compels you to stop, analyze the situation, and change. Here, personal responsibility comes into play, as it now becomes clear that ignoring pain is equivalent to ignoring yourself, and fleeing from it is a rejection of your own identity. However, if you gather the courage to listen to pain with humility, awareness, and curiosity, it can lead you to a place you may not have even known existed, a place where inner peace reigns. And this peace comes not because the surrounding reality becomes ideal, but because you finally achieve wholeness. In the concluding part of our discussion, we will turn our gaze to another aspect of existence, to that realm beyond suffering. What happens when you release the burden of resistance and begin to embrace all those aspects you previously rejected? True healing lies not in avoiding pain, but in transforming it into profound self-awareness. This is the transformation that awaits everyone who dares to look deep within themselves. After long and agonizing internal confrontations, a turning point arrives. This change doesn't happen suddenly, nor is it accompanied by bright flashes or dramatic revelations. It permeates the soul quietly and imperceptibly, like a gentle breeze that is barely felt, yet capable of transforming the entire atmosphere of your inner world. At this moment, you stop fighting with yourself and, for the first time in your life, experience wholeness. But what does attaining this wholeness mean? It is accepting yourself in your entirety, including the traits that cause the most aversion. It is ceasing the war with your feelings, abandoning the pursuit of unattainable perfection, and shedding all masks. There comes a realization that anger, fear, sadness, shame, all those aspects you tried to hide throughout your life, are inherent and legitimate parts of your existence. And when they are integrated instead of rejected, a true miracle occurs. Suffering begins to gradually dissolve, giving way to harmony and peace. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung termed this process individuation. Its essence is not about striving to stand out or be different from others, but about achieving your authentic self, a whole personality, free from distortions and superficial layers. This true essence is born not from a sense of superiority, but from deep self-acceptance. It is not about finding a ready-made solution, but rather discovering uncharted facets of your own soul. Only those who dare to delve into the depths of their emotional wounds and restore the fragmented pieces can truly find themselves. At this stage, you realize there's no need to hide your pain, for it is no longer a defining factor. Pain is a journey traversed, not a destination. Looking back, you understand that every crisis, every fall, and every emotional upheaval had a purpose: to free you from lies, to shatter the illusion of control, and to compel you to discard all superficiality so you could embrace truth. But this truth is not always convenient. It does not eliminate vulnerability. Rather, it demands conscious presence and continuous choice. Now that you have come to know your shadow, understood the role of pain, and felt the power of your authentic self, you can no longer live on autopilot. You begin to clearly discern who supports and inspires you, and who, conversely, drains your energy. You stop tolerating what you once accepted just to avoid conflict. You learn to say no without guilt and, finally, to say yes to yourself. These internal changes happen quietly but have a profound impact. It's not about becoming a new person, but about ceasing to betray your true essence. And at this moment, something nobody taught you is revealed. To be worthy of love, you don't need to heal first. You simply need to accept yourself to stop living in a state of deficiency, for the peace you sought for so long outside has always been waiting within. However, you must remain vigilant, for it is at this stage that many falter. The pain has subsided. Old behavioral patterns have lost their relevance. Life seems to flow smoothly again. The temptation to stop at what has been achieved becomes almost irresistible. But there is one more crucial step, which, according to Jung, is an integral part of the process. For personal healing cannot be considered complete until it transforms into a contribution to the greater good. What will you do with your newfound light, now that you have passed through the darkness of your soul? How will you live now that you have awakened to truth? These are the questions that will be addressed in the concluding part of these reflections. It is about making a conscious choice to live differently, not merely to exist, but to live with clear purpose, deep awareness, and a sense of responsibility. For now that you are, as it were, reborn, life makes higher demands of you. You can no longer pretend not to understand what is happening. You have heard every word, felt every truth pierce your soul like a blade, and despite this, you remain true to yourself. This very fact places you among the chosen few. Most people run away when the truth begins to hurt. Most prefer to remain asleep. But you are not like them. You stayed. And because of that, you now have a choice: to continue repeating old, outdated behavioral patterns that drag you down, or, finally, to take control of your own existence and become the master of your destiny. It doesn't matter how great the suffering you've endured was or what trials you faced. What matters decisively is how you choose to use that experience moving forward. Pain accumulated over years can transform into a source of incredible strength. The feeling of emptiness you desperately try to fill can turn into a fertile silence, providing space for self-discovery. Traumas that left deep scars don't necessarily have to be a life sentence. On the contrary, they can serve as a starting point for achieving genuine freedom. However, it's vital to realize that awakened awareness comes with a price. Once you've seen the truth, it's impossible to return to previous ignorance. Unknowing is no longer an acceptable escape. You are challenged to live on a qualitatively different level. Life at this new level demands heightened responsibility. It entails refusing to betray yourself, rejecting anything less than you deserve, and abandoning the refuge of excuses and old fears. You don't have to be 100% ready. No one ever is. The main thing is to decide to live consciously every day, to look at yourself with firmness, compassion, and honesty, and most importantly, to act. Knowledge not backed by action is just another form of self-deception. As Carl Jung asserted, individuation, the process of becoming a whole person, is a lifelong journey. And today may have been the first truly significant step on that path. Perhaps for the first time, you realize that you are not broken, but rather in the process of construction, in a state of creation. Suffering was not a punishment, but a call, a cry from the soul, urging you to return home. The author invites viewers to share their impressions of the video. He suggests reflecting on which moments resonated most strongly and which truth revealed in the video proved most compelling. The author emphasizes the importance of verbalizing your experience, believing that articulating thoughts and feelings helps solidify them and deepens understanding. He also expresses hope that candid comments from viewers can offer support to others in similar situations. In conclusion, the author urges you not to stop here but to proceed to the next video, which is a logical continuation of this one. He is confident that the new material will be equally important and beneficial to viewers. The accompanying music creates an atmosphere of reflection and